Adam,
What's up? I had to I had to
how are
move. I
you?
found a great spot and it was quiet. I'm traveling in a hotel, and next thing you know, as in any hotel, they decide to just blast the music in the hallway, and I'm like, this is not gonna work. So we're gonna move.
Last hotel I stayed at and tried to work at, I was in the lobby. I had my headphones on. I wasn't paying a lot of attention. The next thing I know, it's like this big, heavy bass beat. And I look up. They set up a DJ in the lobby. I hadn't even noticed. I'm sitting there like, what in the hell is going on here?
Yeah, if it was
All
anything
right.
other than like a live event, I wouldn't mind. But that loud music in the background would kill the vibe, man. Or maybe it would enhance the vibe. Who knows?
Awesome. Well, obviously, this is going to be a super fun, casual conversation. Great to have a awesome friend on, as well as one of the people I most respect in the space. So we have Adam J, CRO from Falcon. Adam, you have an incredible career behind you with some of the hottest, fastest growing tech startups in your CV. Lots and lots of knowledge to drop on us today. So thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited. You said it best. We get to do podcasts, these events a lot of times with folks that, we don't know. They just asked us to do it, have a chance to do it with someone who I know, who I'm friends with, who I respect. It's totally different. So stoked to be here, man.
Yeah, no, it was an awesome, pleasant surprise when I hopped on. I was like, "Oh shit, it's Adam! This is awesome." Uh, well, awesome. So we're gonna jump into it today. Our topic is do more deals by diving deeper during discovery. You have an absolute ton of experience in building, managing sales teams. So really excited to hear kind of what your insights are around all of this. Let's get it started with how do reps dive deeper into the discovery calls? What are they looking for? What are the key things within that? And hell, actually, let's back up a little bit further. In your opinion, what is the primary motivation or thing that a rep is trying to solve for in a discovery call?
So great question. At the end of the day, everyone is trying to solve for something different. What you should be trying to solve for in a discovery call is, does your prospect have needs and pain that you can genuinely help them solve? That's
That's
simple.
great. And then and how much do you typically standardize that with the team? So like, hey, here's the checklist of things that you need to be able to go and say I got intel on this versus the reps know it well enough and that you can just sort of say, okay, yeah, they're gonna know whether this is qualified or not.
No, unfortunately, that approach doesn't work. I've tried it. But you have to be careful, right? Like I have very strong opinions on scripting, which we could talk about. But I think you have to standardize what you're looking for, the information that you need to get to really determine, at the end of the day, is this a qualified opportunity, or is it not? And that comes in down to enablement and training the reps, and based on your particular business, what you're looking for that determines qualification. Don't give me any of that band bullshit. Like, don't try to put me through bands. Everyone has budget, everyone has authority, everyone has needs, and everyone has timeline when you're talking to someone, because no one wants to feel inferior, right? They took your demo, and I'm not going to tell you, oh, Jason, I don't have budget, man. Like, all right, well, then why'd you spend time with me? But you really do have to understand from your product perspective and the pains you're looking to solve, what specifically you need to know from your customer. So I don't want to call it a checklist, but it is a checklist, right? I need to uncover these, 3, 4, 5 objectives specific to my product to learn if this conversation is worth moving forward.
Yep. No, I mean exactly the lessons I've learned the hard way myself. I think most of us go down that road. It's like, yeah, I don't want to micromanage this stuff, and I hate sitting on a call. It's like clearly this person's operating off of a checklist or a script, but the other side of it, I mean, I've often told people if you want to get ready or prepared for being a parent, try rep wrangling. It's about the best
Oh yeah,
training I ever had for it. So
it's
yeah, that's go ahead.
it's different.
It is. It is. So that's sort of like the minimum threshold side of things, but obviously, like really true discoveries going deeper into it. What's your guidance on that side of things? How do you actually get down into the depths of what their needs are, what their use cases are, stuff like that, and go beyond just that minimum threshold of qualification?
Yeah, so there's a few things, right? I think number one, when you walk into a discovery, if you haven't done your research and you're not prepared and you don't know who you're talking to, and at a surface level, you know what their problems are, you're setting yourself up for failure. I was on a disco call the other day and I was the customer. And it started with, so you're the CRO at Falcon, like you've been there, whatever, 4 months. Like, tell me a little bit about what you do. That is such a surface level bullshit question that like there's no spec. I'm allowed to curse on this, right? There's no
Oh, absolutely. Have at
specificity
it.
to what I'm trying to do. And like going through the questions, they were all so surface level that I didn't even understand the problem the vendor was trying to solve. So I think first and foremost, like do your research, like spend 5 minutes, go through my LinkedIn, look at what's important to me. What do I post about? What do I talk about? What is my company about? What do we do? And start to have an intelligent conversation. I despise, hey Jason, like great to see you. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pull up my agenda slide, right? You know, the shitty agenda slide that says we're gonna start with introductions. We're gonna do a discovery. I might show you a little bit of the product, and then we're going to talk about next steps. Everyone's seen the slide. Don't use it. It sucks. No one wants to see it. Um, and then the next thing is let's skip the let's go around the table and do some introductions. Hi, my name's Adam. I'm the CRO of Falcon. Like, you know that, right? You booked the meeting with me. I know who you are. I think the first thing is you want to start by being relatable, by being personable, and also by putting yourself on equal footing with who you're meeting with. So my team sells to VPs of sales and CROs. And a common thing that AEs will do is they'll get on the meeting and they'll be like, Jason, thank you so much for your time. I'm really grateful that you took time out of your day to talk to me. You are immediately putting yourself in a position of inferiority at that point. I have now told you that you are so much more important than me and your time is so much more valuable than I. And don't get me wrong, your time is valuable, but to sell and to sell effectively, people want to buy from people they trust, people they have built a relationship with, and candidly, they're equals. So I always train my folks to start with, instead of like, thank you so much for your time. Hey, Jason, it's great to be spending some time with you today. I'm really excited to learn about ABC. I'm saying the same thing. I'm just phrasing it very, very differently, where I'm not making it appear as if I'm, a layer below you. Then I typically like to, have my reps get into just some point of reference, something interesting to start the conversation. So for me, it could be, hey Adam, like, you're the CR at Falcon. You've been there, about 4 months. What made you decide to get back into sales tech after, taking a little foray and going out into, the SMB world? And what I'm trying to do is spark that conversation, right? I want them to tell me, well, this is what really excites me about, where I am or why I came here. Everything with the purpose of getting them to open up, getting them to share their insights. And then the next question is the most important one. And it's what's going to allow you to go deeper. And it's very simple. It's, Jason, you can be spending these 30 minutes doing anything, man. What made you decide spending 30 minutes talking to a crazy sales guy like me? Or some derivative thereof. Now, some people will give you, well, your BDR was really good. Their message was really compelling. So I just wanted to, take care of, I wanted to talk to you based on that. That is the worst answer. And I'll tell you why. It's good in the sense of, man, my BDR team is fucking killing it, right? Like their messages are so great that we're booking meetings. However, we're not putting enough insight into the customer's mind as to what the hell we do that they want to take a meeting. So once they answer that, I think the key is it's a few things. You got to go deep. You got to think of it. I wish I was in my office at home. You know this because you've spoken to me there, but I have "Tell Me More" behind me on a sign. Like, everything that the customer says, you got to follow up to really understand the pain it's causing. And what I mean by that is, I want, I'll give you a silly example. My wife worked at a software development company, and they had a customer who wanted a purple unicorn to come across the screen when a certain action was taken within the product. True story. Um, Most people would have been like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that, right? Like, not going to happen. Tell me more. Why is that important to you? Oh, well, purple's our brand color and we're really trying to build our brand awareness. Awesome. So by having this purple unicorn come across, how is that going to help build your brand awareness in your mind? Because you're reaching out with your customers. And again, this is a super silly example, but by going 2, 3, 4 layers deep and trying to understand what it is your customer is trying to solve for, or what the pain is multiple layers deep, that's what's going to separate you than the typical discovery, which is, so Jason, you said that you are looking to buy a go-to-market intelligence platform because you're having pipeline problems. Yeah, that's right. Great. So how many reps do you have? What the, how the fuck did that come in? So you're having pipeline problems. Talk to me a little bit about that. What does your pipeline look like? Who's bringing in the pipeline? Where are you hitting compared to where your board wants you to be? You're trying to paint this picture that allows you to go down so many different rabbit holes versus the surface level crap that's going to get you nowhere. You're going to understand what you could find by looking on Crunchbase, by looking on LinkedIn. With any amount of research, I could tell you how many reps you have, what your CRM is. I could arguably tell you what your pipeline is, if I do a little bit of diligence. So you got to go 3, 4, 5 layers deep, but you can't make it the Spanish Inquisition. And I think that's where a lot of reps fuck up. I actually tell my customers, like when I do discoveries, and I do still do discoveries, I feel it's very important no matter what level you get to remain close to the field. I'll start it off by saying, like, Jason, man, like my goal today is to keep this super conversational. I don't want to keep you through the Spanish Inquisition. You didn't jump on a call to answer 30 minutes of questions and not see any product. What I really want to do is spend some time to understand you and your challenges and, see if there's a way that we can help that. And I find that people respect that when you're open and upfront about what your goals are. In today's market specifically, if someone's going to give you 30 minutes of their time, generally speaking, they're not doing it just to like get some SDR to hit their quota. Like there's a genuine interest, right? Time is valuable. Efficiency is really, really important right now. It's on us as sellers to make sure that our buyers are getting as much value out of that 30-minute discovery as we are.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. It's funny that you talk about the 3, 4, 5 layers deep. Same thing I tell my business ethics class. I was like, if you're doing an argument, you're telling me something and you've not asked that why question 3, 4, 5 times, that you're not going deep enough. I mean, and it's pretty universal. I mean, it's not just philosophy. It's not just discovery calls. I mean, it's across the board. If you're not going that far, that deep into it, you're not actually getting down to where the meat is and where the actual things that are driving the interest, the need, anything like that is coming from. So could not agree more with that. So, but it raises two corollary questions to it, both of them around enabling your reps to do that. So you've got one, like the training soft skill side of things, like how do you effectively go and do that during a call? And then there's the other, which is sort of the the management side of things, because obviously I know a lot of reps and a lot of teams where it's like they're held to so many metrics, especially if it's around like activities and stuff like that, that it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, I want to do that, but yeah, where do I have time to go do my discovery or my research ahead of time before I hop on with them? And so interested to hear kind of your philosophies and ways that you tackle both sides of that.
So activities are bullshit, and this is being recorded. So I do have 2 AE openings. Activities are bullshit. The only time I look at activities is if the outputs aren't equating, and it's not to come back and say, "Oh, Jason, you didn't make 75 calls today and send out 37 emails." It's to really understand how you're spending your time so that I could dig into why the outputs aren't measuring, i.e., oh, you only made 2 calls and sent 20 emails. Like, well, now I know why you're not booking meetings. Like, is there a fear of making calls? What's the issue? I think that when you start holding anyone, BDRs or AEs, accountable to specific activity metrics. All you're doing is dissuading them from being creative, dissuading them from focusing on what they do best, and how to drive business. I have a incredible BDR. Shout out to Tyler. When I started, he told me, I don't make cold calls. Now, we could have a whole separate conversation about whether that's acceptable or not. But he told me he doesn't make cold calls. He's not comfortable with it. My initial gut was, listen, at the end of the day, I want to get you comfortable doing cold calls, right? Because we know that meetings convert based off calls and the phone is not dead. That said, if you can book 15 meetings without making cold calls, I don't give a shit. Go do whatever you got to do, my friend. But I think,
Yeah,
when you're talking about like,
I was gonna say
go
that's
ahead.
the only other time that
There's a slight delay here.
Sorry. I was gonna
No,
say the
all
only
good.
other time I care about metrics is if they're killing it, and I'm like, how in the hell are you doing that? Like, let's go reverse engineer and figure out if we can replicate that.
Yeah, I think, you have to have time to do research, and you have to have time to do follow up, and you have to have time to, build that plan for every call. Every discovery is different. What I want to talk to every customers about is different. If I'm talking to a CRO, it's going to be a very different conversation than a director of sales. So I don't focus a ton on activity. Where I try to really spend my time and my team, other than like outputs, of course, is what behaviors are going to drive those outputs. How can I coach you and enable you to be better at your job, whether that's cold calling, whether that's emailing, whether that is a follow-up template that's going to allow you to do that. I'm a big believer in time blocking. I preach, I should practice what I preach because my calendar is nuts. But I think that, whether you're an AE or a BDR, it's really important that you're building in that time to prep before a call, and that you're building in that time to send a follow-up after a call. There's nothing worse to me as a customer than having a great discovery call or a great demo, and I don't see follow-up for 3 or 4 days. Like, what the hell? Time kills deals, my friends. Time kills deals. But activities are garbage, Jason. I mean, that's the short version of it. Is like, when you're looking at the balance, you have to enable your team to have the time to do these things. And by telling them that you have to make X number of calls is not the way to do it. I like to always say that I hire adults. And at the end of the day, these are the, outputs, the measurables that we need to get to. How you get there, entirely up to you. Let me coach you and guide you and help you with where the areas where you're weak so I can make you stronger. And hopefully you can coach me in the areas where you're strong so that I can make other people really strong. But I'm not going to tell you have to make X number of calls per day.
Thank God. I tell people often the very first BDR team I ever built or managed, I started off trying to incentivize or hold them accountable to activity metrics like calls. Learned that lesson really fast. Like, be really careful what you incentivize reps to do. They will maximize for that thing. And so, like, I walked into the room one day and I heard them like get somebody on the phone, and it was, how quickly can I get off the phone? And I was like, wait, I was like, it took me 2 seconds to connect the dots. I was like, yep, that's my fault. Like, I should not have done that. All right, we're gonna absolutely roll that back as far as a metric or something we're trying to hold them to. So yeah, absolutely, be really careful on that front.
I mean, think about it. Like, if we go to BDRs, how many BDR teams used to compensate based on meetings booked? Respectfully, and I mean no disrespect to any BDRs that are listening, but my 11-year-old kid could go book a meeting if I put him on the phone, because there's no qualification, right? Doesn't matter who you book with, doesn't matter if it's qualified, doesn't matter how you incentivize it. Zachary could go out there and get someone to take a meeting with me. It is the wrong behavior to incentivize. To your point,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
we
So what do you incentivize? What is your metric that you build their variable off of?
Great question. So my BDRs there's two forms of compensation, and that's because we are early stage Series A. Compensation number one, which is the lower part of the variable, is on meetings held. And that is qualified meetings held, and qualified in the sense that they are our ICP. So if you book my wife, who's not ICP, and she shows up to a meeting, you are not getting paid. If you book someone in the ICP and they show up, that is portion number one. And then portion number two is sales accepted opportunity. So meeting converts into actual pipeline, which for us is defined as after the initial discovery and what I'll call very brief demo. The decision maker agrees to attend a in-depth demo and has accepted that calendar invite. That is our sales accepted opportunity. So that's how we pay. The meetings held is my way of not stifling the BDR team right now because we are early and who they're booking with. I would rather go a little bit down on our ICP and allow them to book with folks who might not necessarily have power, but could be really good influencers, or really good champions. I'm happy to take those meetings, and they will get paid on having that meeting held. But again, for it to convert to where the real dollars are, we need that calendar invite accepted with the decision maker. So there's two variables. As we scale, I would envision the meetings held going away and focusing just on sales accepted opportunities. Now, this is a whole debate in and of itself, right? Because you'll have people who say that the BDR has no control over whether that opportunity is sales accepted or not, which would be a totally different podcast than this one.
Absolutely a debate I've had more times than I can count. Cool. So what do sales leaders, what do sales teams get wrong whenever they're trying to train their salespeople relative to these things?
Oh, I think number one, you have so many sales leaders that will tell you you got to get that discovery call, plow through it, and the only goal, like, just get through the discovery and get that demo booked. And it's bullshit. All you're doing is inflating pipeline. You are you're having your reps waste time on demos without having uncovered any needs or any pain whatsoever. Number two, I think, and we talked about it, right? It's incentivizing on metrics that just don't matter, and incentivizing on activities. So you are forcing people into behaviors that ultimately are not going to grow your business in any meaningful way whatsoever. Number three, I think when you're looking at how to train reps on discovery, it's making it all about them and you and your company versus about your customer. When you get on a discovery call and your sole goal is to get that customer converted over to demo or whatever stage it is, you're not making it about your customer, man. And it's going to come back and it's going to bite you. It's going to bite that rep. And you're, again, inflating pipeline that doesn't exist. And then lastly, it's thinking that discovery ends at the discovery call. And I have this conversation, with everything from, and I see the smile, from reps to BDRs to CEOs and everything in between. If you're doing it right, discovery never ends because there is so much shit that could change from today to the next time I get on the phone with you. And if that first question you ask isn't, hey, like, what's changed since we last spoke? You're missing a huge opportunity because I guarantee you something has changed. Someone got hired, someone got fired, there's new budget, there's no budget, pipeline got changed, whatever it happens to be. And I don't think enough leaders coach their team on how to do ongoing discovery versus initial discovery because they're very, very, very different things.
Could not agree more. And it raises another conversation I had earlier this week, which was, okay, if you're nailing discovery on the sales side of things, like, hey, we've got all of this incredible information on them and all of this stuff. One of my biggest pet peeves and worst things that I go through is like, all right, I went through all of that. I've given you incredible information, background, discovery, problems I'm trying to solve for, pain points, all that stuff. And then I get handed off to the CS team and I get to go through it all over again. What are some of your keys to coordinating between departments when it comes to this stuff? Because holy hell, is it rare that I find somebody that's got that stuff nailed down.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, right? There is nothing worse than having a disco call with a BDR to get on the phone with the AE, to have a disco call with the AE all over again. First and foremost, data out is only as good as data in. Like as much as everyone hates to do it, you got to put shit in your CRM. And you got to train your BDRs and AEs and arguably CS to do that from day number one. Number two, there is so much good call intelligence technology out there, regardless of what you're using, Gong, Chorus, Avoma, Pickle, pick your poison. If you have not optimized that to pull out your key phrases, your pain, your needs, and get that information into your CRM for the AE who's taking that next call, you are doing yourself a huge disservice. You should never, ever, ever get on a call and have to ask a customer the same question twice. Now, don't misunderstand me. It's you can say, hey, Jason, like, I was reviewing the call that you had with Tyler earlier in the week, and I really loved the part where you were talking about how you're trying to grow your team more effectively and ramp them up, faster this year. I'd like to double click on that for a moment with ABC. Like, you could certainly go deeper, and that's great. But to get on that call and be like, so tell me about what are you trying to do with your team this year? I'd be annoyed as shit as a customer because I've already done this before. So making sure that call intelligence information is there and that everything's documented. And then if there's the bandwidth to do this, and most orgs there is, but some orgs there aren't, the BDR and the AE should be speaking before that call. Even though that you have the call, you have the recording, you have the information in Salesforce. In an ideal world, the BDR is on that call and is teeing it up. I understand a lot of orgs don't have the ability to do that, but at least have a conversation and understand, what's going on. Look at any emails that have taken place before. The simple one-word answer to this, Jason, and the long diatribe I just went on for 3 minutes. Proper prep. It's prep. Do your research. Don't go into a call blind. Look at the CRM, talk to the BDR, listen to the call. Don't book yourself back to back and just go call to call to call where you don't have time to prep. I've made that mistake.
Yeah, and it's part of the beauty of the comp model that you discussed, which is now you've incentivized the BDR to make sure they're doing a little bit more time and attention in that handoff. And especially if you can demonstrate to them, like, hey, the people that do this, like, their meeting acceptance rate, their meetings that turn into qualified ops go way up. And then if you can give them some sort of a standardized template for how they pass that off to the AE, like, all right, now you've demonstrated to them this is money in your pocket, and we've made this as easy as possible as far as a format and what you should be putting into that to do that and do that effectively. And that's it's one of those fringe benefits of that compensation model that you described that I discovered over the years. It's like, all right, now this is when you've done it right. Like, compensation is aligning and motivating people properly to be able to do these sort of more advanced motions relative to it.
Yeah, it's listen, people are going to do what makes them the most money. At the end of the day, no matter where you are, what it is, you have to incentivize the right behaviors. And it's two ways, right? It's the same with the AEs. I think where I see a lot of disconnect is when the BDRs and the AEs are not in sync. Because then what you're going to get is, this meeting you put on my calendar sucks. It's not qualified. You're wasting my time. The BDR is then going to turn turn around and be like, "What are you talking about? This is a great meeting, super qualified." And you have this pissing contest. And the closer you can build that BDR and AE alignment, the better. While I certainly, from a broader org level, have what I think makes a great discovery call. The BDRs and the best discovery calls I've seen are the ones where it's like, Jason, as an AE, like, before you get on a call with a customer, what's really important to you that I find out? Where do you want me? Where do you want me to dig? And then if it's the AEs who are, doing the discovery, that's a whole different conversation, right? Now you're building your discovery around your sales process and how, you want to drive that business forward. I would love to get to a stage where BDRs are doing true deep discovery. We're not there yet. For us, our AEs are doing discovery. So it's really important that when they get the handoff from the BDR, what prompted this person to accept the meeting anyway, and give me an idea of where to start, so that I'm not getting on the call with no clue as to why Jason decided to talk to me today.
Absolutely. All right, so I'm going to throw one out there. This is a topic of debate at every single organization I've built or managed a BDR team. Do you pair BDRs with AEs? Do you round robin it or some other format with it? This is a debate that never fucking ends for me.
I love it. Let's get into the hot topic stuff. My views on this have changed over the years dramatically. My standpoint now, and for about the past year, is you do not pair them; you round robin them. And then I'm assuming your next question is going to be why? Tell me more. Let's do some discovery, right?
Let's go deeper.
I love it. So I've worked in orgs where it has been this true one-to-one ratio. And what you get there is inevitably you have a killer BDR who is only funneling to one AE that they are paired with. And your other AEs are bitching at you that, well, my BDR sucks. If I just had Jason, I would have a shit ton more opportunities. And it creates a unfair stacked environment that is affecting pipeline, it's affecting sales accepted opportunity, it's affecting everything. What I've found is, for not only fairness, but from a coaching, training, and having more accurate numbers across the board standpoint, not pairing and doing a true round robin, for me, allows me to run my business better. It allows me to better coach both BDRs and AEs, because you're getting to experience a little bit of working with everyone and working styles, to give you a broader picture of how people are doing things, and what's working and what's not.
Exactly been my lessons and experience around it. And the one above and all else that really drives me to not do that pairing is if I'm trying to rapidly grow teams. Like, holy shit, if you're having to try and manage pairings as you're trying to add both BDRs and AEs, like, that is hard enough to begin with. Like, don't put yourself in that position. Like, that's just a whole nother layer of complexity.
That, and what if, as good as your BDR might be, or as bad as your BDR might be, you have a one-on-one pairing, someone quits, someone gets promoted. You now have an AE who's at a tremendous disadvantage. Maybe they were only good because Jason was their BDR. Maybe they weren't. Maybe but they built that relationship with you, and now their numbers are so great. And now Adam comes in as this new BDR, who, by the way, is better than Jason, but that's neither here nor there. But it's going to take me time. It's going to take me time to ramp. It's going to take me time to ramp up, though, right? So the AE is totally disadvantaged. Where if it's round robin, all is fair, and you're not putting someone at that competitive disadvantage. However, it's funny. Most leaders I speak to today still do a one-to-one pairing.
Yeah, it's honestly, the older school the leader is, the more I seem to engage in that debate where they're just dead set on a one-to-one pairing. And for me, it's always worthwhile to try and remind myself, like like I mentioned earlier, rep wrangling can be exhausting, and it's like you're constantly doing like fights over fairness and like, hey, they stole this from me, like all kinds of stuff. But at the end of the day, like, it's always good for me to remind myself, like, this is their livelihood. And for a lot of these reps, like, that's a significant portion, if not the majority of their take home is coming from the variable side of their comp. And if you're monkeying around with stuff like this, where you've got variability in who they're paired with, or somebody leaves, or you're ramping somebody new, like, they can have a significant impact over a short-term period of time, or even a longer period of time for them, as far as what they're bringing home at the end of the day. And that's important. I mean, like, this is literally somebody's livelihood, their ability to be able to pay bills and provide for their families and stuff like that. And so I think it warrants considerations above and beyond just like, hey, this maximizes revenue, even though I think it doesn't actually maximize revenue either. But even if you've got an argument for that, like, you still need to pay attention to the other side of it as well.
100%. Couldn't agree more.
Cool. So I'm snickering to ask this question, but how do
Oh
you
boy.
identify? How do you identify and build sales leaders out of your sales team, or do you do that?
Whew. Um, so I do. It is what I'm most passionate about more than anything else. Is building leaders, the next generation of leaders, um, and ideally that always happens internally. I think the way that most people identify it is wildly fucking wrong. Um, and I say that being the one that was promoted from that. So we'll go into story time a little bit here. Um, I was very fortunate to be the number one rep when I was a rep for a long time. And that was the criteria to become a manager, right? Like if you're the best rep, and shit, go train people. Like you're doing it, you might as well make everyone else great at it. And that is not what makes someone a good leader at all. So I applied for this role, district manager role. I was selling medical devices, and I didn't get it. And I was mind fucked. Like, how can I not get this role? I'm literally like the number one rep for like 3 years in a row, dude. Like, how are you not promoting me? This makes no sense. Um, didn't get it. Whatever. No one spoke to me about it. I went in my corner and pouted and had a shitty attitude. I was in my 20s and like, fuck the world. They don't know what they're talking about. And lo and behold, 6 months later, the role comes up again. And I apply, and guess what happens? I don't get the job. And now my mind is really screwed, right? Like, how the hell did I not get this 2 times in a row? P.S. I was still the number one rep for anyone keeping track here. So I was in San Diego. I'll never forget with our VP of Sales, Whitney Parachak, one of the best sales leaders I've ever worked with in my life. She sits me down in the courtyard of this beautiful Marriott hotel. We're at, this is like when we did big giant national sales meetings, and we had like Maroon 5 come and play a private concert for us, like shit that you just can't do anymore. Everyone got a PlayStation in their room at the end of the night. It was the good old days. It's fun to think about that stuff. But Whitney sits down. She's like, "Do you want to know why you didn't get the role?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." She's like, "Are you sure? Because this is going to be some pretty rough feedback." Yeah, absolutely. She's like, "Because you're an asshole." Like, excuse me? Like, what? I'm the nicest guy in the world. What are you talking about? She goes, "You are absolutely the best rep, but you are doing nothing that a good leader does. You don't share your best practices. You don't step up to take on more and learn. You don't work cross collaboratively. You don't lift other people up. It's always about how good you are, what you're doing, and how you're doing it. And that is the exact opposite of what makes a good leader." And I'm going back well over a decade. I'm not going to age myself here. But I remember this like it was yesterday. It's guided how I look for leaders now, which is, number one, maybe you're the top performing rep. Maybe you're not. You certainly can't be the lowest performing rep and get promoted. Um, but are you doing the things that demonstrate good leadership quality? Are you, working to lift others up? Are you leading without the title, so to speak? Are you sharing what's working and what's not with others? Do you reach across the aisle and work cross collaboratively and help people think differently? Do you have a winner's mindset from a culture standpoint? And are you, working to overcome the obstacles that we all deal with every day? I think when you look at that and you look at the people who have these natural leadership tendencies, shit, I could teach you how to sell, but I can't teach you how to lead. And at the end of the day, your job as a leader, it's another Whitneyism, if you will, is one thing, and it's to get your team to run through a brick wall for you. At the end of the day, it's, this is the objective we need to hit. And all that anyone says on that team is, "Jason, let's go, man. Let's figure out how we're going to do it." Because they believe in you so much, because you believe in them so much. It's a circle. That failure is not an option. And that takes a special kind of person. Way too many orgs, even orgs I've been in a part of, have had the mentality of, you know, the next leader is going to be the best rep. And the best rep's going to go into that spot. You're going to lose all their pipeline, all their deals. And they are going to, and I certainly suffered from this in my first leadership role. They're going to have the expectation that everyone's going to be them. There's a reason you're the number one rep, my friend. And it's because you do things differently, not because everyone does things the way you do. And you have to change that mindset that you're coaching people to be the best version of them that they possibly can. I'm not coaching to make 27 mini atoms, because that's not going to be successful. Nor does anyone want that, to be perfectly clear.
I was going to say that's terrifying.
Listen, I hear you. It's almost as terrifying as like 27 mini Jasons. But now imagine putting all of those people together. Fuck, that would be a sales team, man.
It'd be something. I'm not sure what it would be, but it would certainly be something. Awesome. So, I mean, one of my favorite things, one of the first things I got to know about you, is certainly something that we try and follow and apply here at RevGenius, is your give more than what you get philosophy.
Fuck yeah,
Take
dude.
us through that, the implications around it. Want to hear you go through that one with us.
It's funny. Have you noticed the like distinct change in my tone and personality when we went to Discovery to start talking about leadership and shit like that? It's all important, but you could see where my passions truly lie. Man, it's so important to, I mean, high level, yes, give more than you get, but we live in this fucked up world where it's like take, and everyone wants to just take what they can, and it's all about them and how much money could I make, and it doesn't matter who I have to step on to get it, and it's brutal. And at the end of the day, if you take a step back and you put others first and you give, and we'll talk about what give means in a minute, but when you give, you are going to get so much more in return in a multitude of ways. Number one, let's talk about respect, right? When you look at wanting people to want to work with you, they have to respect you. And no one respects people who are only out for themselves all the time. Again, I'm the asshole, right? I was that guy where it's like, I did this. I closed this deal. I brought this business in. I, took the CEO to dinner. No one wants to work with that person. No one wants to run through a brick wall for that person, for sure. When you start giving back to others, to community, and start giving your time, it's going to pay itself tenfold. I think, what I realized, and I learned the hard way, and I'm going to give the proverbial shout out here to Jared, who is better at give more than you get than arguably any of us. And I'll never forget, I laughed at the first time. I don't remember if Jared messaged me directly or someone else messaged me, and it was like, he's such a homie. And I was like, who the fuck uses the word homie? I now use it, PS. But Jared really taught me give more than you get, and it's at a deeper level. And it's something I try to do every day. It's giving my time back for coaching. So I do paid coaching on the side. I also block out hours every week for those who can't afford paid coaching, but who need coaching. And it's not that I'm hoping it gets me more paid business. It's not anything to do with that. It's someone took a chance on me once and said, "Oh, you'd be a good VP of sales." I wasn't remotely ready, and they shouldn't have taken that chance, but they did. And I want to give people that same opportunity who would otherwise not have it because they don't have an extra $1,000 a month. They don't have, they don't know how to do PowerPoint, so they need someone to help them, for an hour. And it's kind of my way of giving back and staying in touch with kind of that ground level and what's going on. And when you do that, you'll be rewarded in so many ways. The most important of which is like how you feel as a human being and in your heart. But I've had people who have reached out to me and wanted to work with me, and I'm going to say for me, but I hate that term, but work with me because they've heard and seen my philosophy on helping others and lifting others up, and spending time doing things that I get no compensation for. I think that charity is something that should be mandated, in the sense of my kid every Christmas goes and serves soup to the homeless people, and he bitches about it every Christmas. Um, he does, but at the end of the day, and I'll say this here, and I'll say this to him: we are very blessed to live a privileged life as upper middle class white men who don't have to deal with the struggles that most people have to deal with. And I want him to realize that your friends don't get to go out to eat once a week. Your friends don't get to go to Europe for a winter vacation. Like, that doesn't happen. It could all, for you, for me, for anyone, um, everything we have could be taken away in a second. There are hundreds of thousands of people that were just laid off, who can't do the things that I'm fortunate enough to be able to do. And I'm obviously going to the extreme with the homeless folks in the soup kitchens, but giving back to those folks and spending your time helping them craft their resume, network, get a job. That's what life is about. It's not about how many zeros can I add to my paycheck? Where could I go on vacation? And it's about never forgetting where you came from, because it can all be taken away in an instant. We all work in sales. The economy is what it is. I have fear every day, that it could, I don't, but that it could all end tomorrow. And what I want to be remembered for is being a good human being, and giving back to people. And I think that if everyone were to do that, and make it more about giving than taking, the world would be a much better place. So rant over.
No, that's fantastic. As we as one of our many slogans in AA, if you do the next right thing, the rest will follow. And since I've tried to start following that, it's really kind of funny. It really does work out more often than not. Of course, what we're describing is. Go ahead.
It's true though. Like what you just said, and both my parents are recovering addicts. One's recovering, one's still an addict. But I think what you said holds true, and I wasn't always this way. Like, I've been very open, and I found that the quality of my mental life, like, let's forget money, let's forget anything else. The quality of my mental life and my mental health is so much better with this mindset than it's all about me mindset. And I would encourage everyone, if for nothing else, try it for 30 days for your own mental health. Go do something for someone else with no expectation whatsoever, other than, dude, I just want to fucking help you. I will spend an hour of my time with you, whatever you need, with no expectation of, I just want to help you. You will feel so good afterwards. Like, words cannot even describe it.
Absolutely. So what we're describing here is obviously pretty radically different than I think what's been the primary way of doing stuff in our space for a while now. Obviously we've got the layoffs, a lot of the stuff that used to work to some degree or another now just flat out doesn't work. So we've got a shifting landscape within all of this. How much hope do you have that this is a wake up call and that people are going to key into we got to do this differently and better, or are we going to keep searching for that next easy button and wind up kind of back here all over again?
It's a great question, and one that I've thought about a lot. I think that we're in a tough place, right? We're in a scary place. Again, there's hundreds of thousands of people who don't have a job right now, who are looking for a job. And while overall over the past decade, companies have grown, the numbers are up, the fact is, tech overextended itself. It became this grow at all costs mentality. I've been through it. You've been through it. Doesn't matter. Just go hire more people. Go hire more people. That's going to fix it. Hiring more people isn't going to fix it. And I think what we're seeing isn't the great layoff. Back then, before this wasn't the great resignation. I think what we're seeing is a right sizing. of where business should be. I think what we're seeing is proper expectations, hopefully starting to be set for VCs and PE firms. And my sincere hope is that we don't go back to where we were, that we use this as a lesson that this isn't just Silicon Valley dollars. And I was in Silicon Valley on Monday. It's funny, I was having the same conversation with my Uber driver, oddly enough. This isn't just Silicon Valley dollars that we're playing with. This isn't just returns on, money. These are people's lives that we're fucking with. These are people's livelihoods. And I take every time I hire someone, and certainly every time I have to let someone go, very seriously, because if I am hiring you, I am now responsible, arguably, for putting food on your table or making sure that you are set up successfully to put food on your table. My sincere hope is that we don't go back to what we had and that we learn from this and we look at growing sustainably. We look at hiring sustainably. We look at making the right decisions that are going to allow businesses and people to be successful and grow. Otherwise, all that's going to happen is all these layoffs, everything's going to be in vain. And, 6 months or a year from now, you're going to see these wild valuations being thrown out there again. And we're going to go back to grow at all costs. And having been in that situation where I was hired in a role, doesn't matter where, was told, the goal is to 3x revenue in the next year. Very reasonable. I mean, not easy, but reasonable. To only find out, I think it was 18 days later, that a round had been raised. And now the goal is to 9x revenue in a year. I don't care who you are, how good you are, and how quickly you build out a team. And anyone can please DM me if I'm wrong. I don't think there is history of anyone 9xing in a year. It's unreasonable. And all I got told is, dude, go hire 60 reps in the next 2 weeks. You've got to be fucking kidding me. So I hope we never get back to it, man. I hope that we continue to do things differently. We use this as a lesson and we start doing business the right way. Those who have always done business the right way, and we're all in that same circle. We all know each other, will continue to thrive. And I hope that those who have set up the business the wrong way learn from this and start to realize that there is another way. And it's responsible. It's safe. And I don't mean safe in the sense of don't make aggressive bets, don't, think outside the box. It's safe in the sense of like, you're not hiring 60 people who might be out of a job if you don't hit an unrealistic number at the end of the quarter.
Yep, 100%. And God knows I've been in that mix for way too long. So we're coming up close to the end. I want to ask one more question of you. As somebody that's been in, early-ish stage startups, kind of, Series A through D type territory, and Falcon's on, arguably the earlier side of that spectrum. Just point blank, what the hell's wrong with you?
I ask myself that every day. You have to be. I want to be careful with my words here because that's the world we live in. You have to be a pretty ill individual to want to do what we do. This is the hardest job I've ever had, by far. I work harder than I ever had. I'm more stressed than I've ever been. People who know me see it, but it's so much fun. For me, what's wrong with me is I love to build. I want to leave a legacy, so to speak, and I want to be able to look back and be like, man, this was nothing. I built an amazing team and we built something incredible. And it all stems. Salesforce used to be my dream company that I wanted to work for. Don't know what I was thinking, but I got an offer for, love Salesforce, but the story will make sense. Got an offer for an RVP role at Salesforce. Was having a conversation after I got the offer letter with the SVP of sales. He's like, I want to tell you something. You're inheriting a great region. If you move the needle quarter of a percentage point this year, you're going to go to President's Club. Excuse me? I must have misheard you. No, if you move the needle a quarter of a percentage point, you're going to go to President's Club. And like, I picked my jaw up off the floor. Like, a quarter of a percentage point, like, what the fuck is the impact of that? I want to have big impact at scale. It's why I coach. It's why I work with aspiring leaders, but it's also why I play in the startup space, because I think that not anyone, but it's much easier to go to an established company and tweak a little bit of this and tweak a little bit of that and be the VP of the CRO of spreadsheets and just hit refresh all day and look at what's working, versus having to get your hands dirty, build, and getting to talk to some of the most fun people in the game, man.
Absolutely. I at the heart of it, I think we can't help ourselves. And at the end of the day, that's sort of what's wrong with us. I mean, and people really kind of fall on one side or the other. My brother and I both grew up in a family of entrepreneurs and went opposite extremes. I've spent the time either starting my own company, very early stage startup, stuff like that. My brother's done nothing but climb the corporate ladder. And like, we both talk to each other, and it's like, no way in hell could I do that.
Sure.
And this is all the reason why anytime they ask me to come in and do a talk with prospective entrepreneurs or people that are interested in trying to get into the space, I spend the bulk of the time telling them this is the dumbest thing that you could ever think of doing, which is probably why they don't invite me that much anymore. But it's like, okay, after all of this, if you're still interested, I haven't talked you out of it, then let's talk. But I'm going to stand up here and tell you all of the reasons why, like all of the fluff and bullshit that people tell you, like being an entrepreneur, working for yourself, it's the greatest thing ever. It's like, absolutely not. Like, you do it because you can't help it. Not because it's like,
100%.
hey, this is going to be some amazing thing I'm going to go off and do. But
couldn't agree more,
well,
man.
we're at the top of the hour. Before we wrap up, let everybody know where they can find you.
Currently in California. No. Best place to get me is on LinkedIn. Blah blah blah. www.Adam B as in boy JAY.
Awesome. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being on here. This has been a blast. Arguably, we went quite a ways away from the qualification topic at the start, but I think that's the hallmark of a good episode.
I love it, man. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you.